Hi everyone, thanks for joining this webcast. My name is Nimrod Geva. I manage KWIZ's product group. And today I'm going to speak about Calendar Plus web part, which is one of our first products. The first version of Calendar Plus was released back in 2006, so we're talking about 10 years now. And today I'm going to combine an overview for the ones who still don't know anything about Calendar Plus. So I'll demonstrate some of its features, and I will also mention some of the new features and upcoming features for customers who are already using Calendar Plus and wish to get updated with the new capabilities. Just a few words about KWIZ. KWIZ started working back in 2005. We are located in Richmond Hill, which is near Toronto in Canada. Our main business is add-ons and apps for Office 365. We have about 70 different products, add-ons, apps, and currently we're still in the process of migrating most of our add-ons to add-ins or apps. So we'll be able to serve both on-premises customers and cloud or Office 365 customers. Okay, so back to, let's go to the first slide. Back to Calendar Plus. So eventually Calendar Plus is a web part which aggregates events and displays them in a more convenient or a nicer view. Aggregation means retrieving events according to some query from various sources. These sources can be SharePoint lists, Exchange Calendar, Google Calendar, Exchange Online, and custom sources by using web services. So bottom line, we can aggregate almost from any source events, and of course display them in a clear way, including color coding and displaying in various display types. Some of the features before I start demonstrating the product. So as I mentioned, Calendar Plus aggregates events from various sources, both internal and external on the cloud. The calendar, like I think many other standard calendars, supports many display types: day, week, month, and so on. One thing that deserves mentioning is that Calendar Plus also includes mini calendar, which other companies sell as separate products. Here everything is in the same product. As I mentioned before, there's event coloring. You can also create events directly from the web part, so no need to go to your SharePoint list and do it there. You can do it directly from the web part. And other features like drag and drop and printing and export of the events. These are what we call basic features. Some more advanced features are aggregation from custom web services. This enables connecting to your ERP or CRM or any other proprietary system that has some information that involves dates. Dynamic aggregation, I will touch this subject a bit later while doing a live demo. Multiple time zones enable companies that have offices in different time zones to properly view the events in the calendar. There's a customizable UI, which means You can configure almost everything, and this includes the captions, the menus, the time formats, tooltips, which data you see on the tooltips, and even the look and feel by using custom style sheets. Token-based settings means that since the calendar connects to, let's take SharePoint list for example, connects to some site URLs and to some specific lists in order to aggregate them, by using tokens instead of hard-coded URLs, we enable you to include the web part in a site template that later on is enrolled many times without having to go after each time you create a site again to the web part properties and update the URLs. Since the URLs are based on tokens, they are purely dynamic, so there's no need to update them after you enroll a site template that includes Calendar Plus. And finally, last feature that I'd like to mention is asynchronous loading. Very important, because as we saw in many deployments, sometimes there are many sites and lists to aggregate, and these can be thousands of sites and more of that lists and events. So lazy loading or asynchronous loading means that the web part won't get stuck until it finishes aggregating all the events, but it will do it. It will not stop the page from loading and will asynchronously load the events. Some of the new features and upcoming features. So we have a brand new UI, and this is the UI that I will demonstrate right now. We have a new agenda view and year view, and also new capabilities of export to iCalendar, which means you can easily add some of the calendars that you view into your Outlook, for example. We also plan to very soon release a new feature, which is resources and the ability to group by resource. This answers many customer requirements of being able to manage resource calendars. So you can manage carpool calendar or meeting room calendars, or even a person calendar which needs to attend to many any resource, and also alert on resource collisions. So this is coming really soon, in about a month. And another big feature, which is not actually a feature, it's actually a separate product, is the Calendar Plus app, which will be released by end of the year and will support Office 365. However, I need to mention that it will not be 100% identical to the on-premises, to the full trust solution that product that I'm demonstrating today, due to Office 365 limitations comparing to on-premises API. Okay, enough with the slides. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to use two demos that I prepared, and through these demos, or by showing these demos, I'll go over some of the features, and there are many features. I won't review all of them, but I think I'll go over the main ones that will give you the ability to make your decisions if you like this product or not, or if it has the features that you need. Of course, you can also play with the product yourself, but by simply downloading a trial version and using the training videos that we have on our website and the user guides. Okay, so let's start off with the first demo, which I call it School Class Calendar only because this is the name of the site, but it's relevant to many other scenarios. And I'm going to show you how this calendar aggregates events from many sources. You can see that there's static aggregation, and I will clarify the difference between static aggregation and dynamic aggregation. So let's get started. So I have here, this is not the right one, this is the right one. Okay, let's refresh it. This virtual machine is a bit slow, but it's okay. Okay, so let's first discuss what we have here. So I have kind of a school portal, quite not very impressive. It has only one web part, which is our Calendar Plus web part. And it has two subsites, one for math grade 10 and one for English grade 10. Each such site, let's go to math site for a second. Okay, so this is my non-impressive math grade 10 site. It has two lists. One of them is called assignments, which is not a calendar list, but it has columns with dates. And this is what interests me. It has a start date and end date. These are assignments that are given in this course, the math course. And we have also an exams list, which is a calendar list, and it includes all these course exams. So we have in each site two lists. One is a looks more like a task list. Actually, it's an assignment list and exam list. Okay, back to our calendar. So what you see now is actually the end result. What you see here is aggregation of events from, and you see it by color coding and by the legend. So we are aggregating all the English assignments, math exams, and we don't see any math assignments here because English assignments, because in this month there are no English assignments. Let's switch to the next month. So yeah, in June we have English assignments. Now we can switch on and off each of these sources, and each of these lists we are aggregating here 4 lists. Okay, so each of these lists is a source, and I will show in a minute how I configured it. And I can switch on and off any source if I don't want to view it. This can be done by the end user, and this is also configurable. You can also see that we have several views. We have a day view, a week view, month that we already seen, and a year, and we also have an agenda view. Let's go to some dates where we have events. Okay, and this is the agenda view. You can also notice that we have a tooltip, and this tooltip is configurable. So for example, for this type of event, an exam, we see these fields. We see title, start time, end time, and location. Let's go back to a monthly view and let's go back to the previous month. Now, in addition to these events, I also aggregated my Google Calendar, and of course I'll show you how this is configured. And if I hover over the Google Calendar, I see different fields in the tooltip. Okay, there are many others, which means the tooltip is configurable, and I can configure it according to the source. So some sources, like exams, The relevant fields are these ones: the location of the exam, which is the room, and the start time and end time. But if it's a private source from Google, we have different sources. I can also aggregate from my Outlook calendar, and this can be actually my private Outlook, and of course what I'm using now is my credentials, so each user sees his own Outlook. We can also configure the web part to show shared or public folders in Outlook, and we can do it in two ways. Each user will use his own credentials, or we can use one shared user to do it. It depends on how IT prefer to configure it. So the blue ones now, like meeting with Igor, this is coming from my Outlook. Okay, let's just show you Outlook for a second. So the meeting is, let's switch to a weekly view maybe. And I see that we have on May, let's go here. On May 18, we have STKDR. On May 18, yeah, let's switch back 1 week. Okay, we have the STKDR. Okay, and so on. So we aggregate from my calendar, from my Outlook calendar. We also aggregate from Google. Let's see, where is my Google Calendar? I'm afraid I closed it. Maybe I closed it. No, I didn't. Okay, so as you see, I have here on the 13th of May, I have a doctor's appointment, and on the 9th, I have a coffee with Jay. So just to make sure. Yeah, we have a coffee with Jay and a doctor's appointment here. So this is just a quick overview. We see aggregation from many sources. One more thing that I'd like to show you here. You know what? That's enough for now. Let's see the configuration of this, so you understand how this works. Okay, so let's edit the web part. Okay, to edit the web part, I open the tool part. Now the tool part is big. You can see we have like 8, 9, 10, 12 tabs, 12 configuration tabs. This means dozens of properties. This product is really flexible. The penalty of this flexibility is that there are many properties, really many properties. You have to work with the user guide. To get to the help resources, you just click here, the need help, and you can get to video tutorials, you can get to product documentation, and you can talk with us, but I don't think you need it. You have very massive documentation on this web part. Let's start off with the SharePoint calendar list. So SharePoint calendar list, this is in this tab you configure the lists that you want to aggregate. And the way to do it, you just select a site, and as I mentioned, we have tokens. So you can put here the URL of the site, hard-coded URL, not recommended. What we always do, we use tokens like current site, and if it's a sub-site, then you put current site / and your sub-site. And we support several tokens like current site, site collection, and server. Then you select your list, and I aggregated some lists from a sub-site, not from the current site, so you don't see this list right now. You can also define some coloring settings for this source, so it can be hard-coded back color and text color, or it can be dynamic coloring settings. So according to a field, so let's say you have a category, and I'll show it in a second. You have a category. You can say if it's a meeting, if the category field equals meeting, then the background will be yellow, and if the category field will equal something else, background will be blue, and so on. So you can do static coloring by source, by the list, or you can do dynamic coloring even for one list, but for different types of events according to field values. You can control the legend, what to display in the legend, and if you want to display it at all. I'm skipping over the more advanced properties, and I'm focusing on the main ones. Tooltip fields, this is where you say which fields from the source you want to display in the tooltip. And I showed you that some sources have different content, different fields in their tooltips. Finally, you map the sources columns to the columns that we need in our calendar. We need for every source, no matter where it comes from, we need the title to display, we need the start date, end date, location is optional, description is optional, but a mandatory for any source is to have a title, a start date, and end date sources. So as you can see, we don't have to aggregate only calendar or only events. You can aggregate anything that has date information, like tasks, assignments like you see here, milestones, risks, and so on. Now once you configure all of this, you click add, and this is how you add a source. And here at the bottom you see all the sources that I already added. So as you can see, I have 4 sources. This is the URL. This one is a subsite of the current site called Math 10, and the aggregated list is assignment, and I can also aggregate a specific view, and these are the colors. So this is the way I did it. Let's go on to the other sources that we had here. So we have an Outlook Web Access also source, and you can connect to various sources, and once you select the type of exchange, you provide the URL, and the URL you simply take from your assuming you are already connected to oh, sorry, by the way, this is an exchange online because we at QuizCom are connected to Exchange Online. I took it from my Outlook. If you go to File menu, you see here the URL, our URL. So it's https outlook.office365.com. That's what you need if your Exchange is hosted in Office 365. But you can also use other on-premises Exchange to connect to. You can also show Outlook categories. I didn't configure it. The same categories that you have in Outlook. Here you configure the tooltip fields, the fields that will appear in the tooltip, and also you can do category color mapping, same as you have in Outlook, where you have categories with colors. You can also have them here. Then I configured the name in the legend that I will see for my Outlook calendar. And this is a private calendar. You can also connect to public Outlook calendars and add several of them. Finally, very important, you can provide, as I mentioned before, a fixed username and password to connect to an Outlook calendar. This is used when connecting to a public folder. sometimes IT don't want to start giving permissions to each and every user to this public folder, so we use one shared user. In other cases, when you're connecting to a personal calendar in Outlook, of course you won't be using, unless you want to do it really on purpose, you won't be using a shared user. You want each user to use his own credentials. And this is done, by the way, the first time you open the web part, the user will be prompted for his Outlook credentials. If he is not, each user can use this dialog to provide his Outlook credentials. Last source that I wanted to show you its configuration is the Google Calendar. And this one is a bit more complicated. We have a separate training session on it, but in bottom line, you have to connect through a connector that is configured with a private key. This is required by the Google API, the Google Calendar API. In this example, I'm connecting to my own Gmail calendar, which we can see here. Okay, this is my private Google Calendar. You can connect to a private Google Calendar or public. Mine is configured as a public, and this is the API key that I mentioned, that this is a one-time operation to get it from Google, and how to do it is provided once you click on the help icon. We provide a complete tutorial about Google API. Again, it's a one-time thing that you have to do when you want to connect by using the Google Calendar API to Google Calendars. Again, you can configure the background and the foreground color, and that's about it here. Okay, let's switch to our next demo. Okay, this one I call project management use case. Again, it's not, this example is not relevant only to project management, but one thing is very relevant to project management. And I'm talking about the dynamic aggregation. So in the previous example, I showed you a calendar that was configured to aggregate 4 lists. Each list was added manually in the settings pages in the toolpart. I configured the URL of the site and the URL of the list and the background color and the foreground color, and I did it manually list by list. Now, imagine this scenario. You have a project management site where for each project you have a subsite. Now, projects are created dynamically. So you can have 5 projects, you might have 100 projects. Now, you don't want to have to add a new source to the calendar every time a new project is created. This is an overhead. In this scenario, it would be much more convenient if we could dynamically aggregate all the subsites under projects under the project management site. So dynamically aggregate all the project sites which are subsites without having to manually add a source every time someone creates a project. And this is the main thing that I wanted to show here. Let's switch to my example, and let's go up to oh no, I think I have it here, sorry. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this is my projects site, and As you can see, I have 8 subsites: project 1, project 2, project 3, and so on. Let's just view one of the project sites so we see what we have there. Again, not a very impressive project site. We have 2 lists here. One is called milestones. It's a calendar list, and one is tasks, which actually is empty in this site. Now, as you can see here, we have milestones aggregated from many sites. Let's switch to the next month. And we also have our local EPM team calendar, which is a local calendar here in the project sites. And we also have, and that's it. Now, first thing I want to talk about is the dynamic aggregation. So let's go to the toolpart again, and I'll show you how I aggregated all the milestones from all our projects. So one way to do it, you already know, is to add 8 sources, 1 for each milestone list from each project. But this is not the way we did it. Let's go to the SharePoint Calendar List tab, and I have it already configured. You see I have one source, which is the list which is aggregated is called milestones. And let's edit this source so you'll see how it was configured, because as you can see I have one source for 8 sites. So the way it was done, you can see I checked the manually enter list and view names, because I'm not selecting a specific list. I'm only selecting a list type, or a list name more accurately. So my list name is milestones, and this is the main thing here. I'm aggregating all milestones list that I can find in one level below my site, and I could put here 2, 3, or 4 if I wanted to drill down more levels down below my site. So in this way, I'm not aggregating from a specific list. This source says you go and look for a list called milestones, and look for it in the current level and one level below. So this way I'm aggregating many lists in one source. Also, because I'm not aggregating each list separately, it's all done in one source, I cannot color code by source, because all of the lists are one source. I check the use dynamic generated background color. So the web part dynamically create a different color for each list, each milestone list that it finds. And it's displayed in the legend. That's about this one. As you can also see, I also aggregated the EPM team calendar, which is a simple calendar list. This is the list. EPM team calendar. Now the thing that I wanted to show you here is that just a second, I don't see something here. Let's edit it again. For some reason I didn't see its properties. Okay, so as you can see, I'm aggregating the EPM team calendar, which is in the current site. This is normal. And I have here dynamic color coding. So in the previous example, in the school example, I had a color for each source. So for English exams, I have one color. For English assignment, I had a different color, and that was configured here in background color and text color. Here I'm coloring the same list, but different colors according to a value of the category field. So different values get different colors, and here I typed the possible values of the category field, which are birthday, business, meeting, and get together, and for each one of them the matching color and the matching background color and the matching text color. So for example, a birthday type event, which comes from the same list as business and meeting, will have a yellow background and a black text color, while business meeting will have a blue background and white color. So this is an example where you color code events not by their source, but their type, but according to a value of a column in the list. So as you can see, this is coming from our EPM calendar. Let's click cancel here, sorry. Okay, so as you can see, we have business meetings. They have a blue background, while birthday type meeting have a yellow background. What you also can see here are the dynamically aggregated events. As you saw, they were configured with one source. I didn't have to configure 7 or 8 sources. Just one source that aggregates all milestone lists one level down from this site, and you see all the results with dynamic legend, dynamic colors created by the web part, and of course I can check out the ones that I don't want to see or check them back in. One more thing that I wanted to show you is the ability to add events. Now, because this calendar is not connected to a single list, unlike SharePoint, for example, we have a question here: to which calendars, when you add an event, you want to add the event? And also, do you want to allow users to add events directly from here to all lists? Maybe some lists they should also only look, but not try to add anything to them. So as you can see here, for example, when I click new, only the EPM team calendar appears. Also, if I click any of the dates to have a new appointment, you will see that I can add the new appointment only to the EPM team calendar. Now, why is that? This is one of the configurable things that you can configure here. Let me show you. Okay, so one of the tabs is called Adding New Item Settings. So first of all, as you can see, I allowed adding new items directly from the calendar. And also the behavior is configurable if you want it to be in place. So as you saw in the calendar itself, or a new pop-up, or instead of the current window. And also here is where you configure to which source you want to enable adding new events. So currently the Exchange calendar here, I don't have Google connected in this example, but only the EPM calendar is available here. Finally, I wanted to go over some additional configuration settings for you, just to to know what else there's here. So besides of the print and export that you have here, let's go to general settings. So what you saw here is the new calendar UI. If you uncheck this, you'll see the older version. You can control anything. Which buttons will be displayed? Which button will be displayed here in the toolbar of the web part? If you want to show this detailed tooltip or not. You have control over what happens when you click an event. So you can display the event details in the same window or in a new window. You also have advanced layout customization, as I mentioned. You can even update the user control here, which is really deep customizations, or you can provide your own templates and your own CSS file that you can override here. You can configure time display formats and first day of the week and how many hours a day and so on. Additional settings of things that you want to hide from the toolbars. As I mentioned, we also have a mini calendar. You just have to select the mini calendar here in the general settings. Table view is another view that I didn't show you. It's an older one. It shows the calendar as a grid. That enables you to do more filtering and so on. Not the most popular view. Outlook Web Access is the tab that I showed you where you configure the connection to Exchange server, which can be on-premises or online. SharePoint calendar lists is where you configure the connection to any SharePoint calendar list that you have. Custom web service provider is where you can configure the connection to a custom web service, and this really opens the possibilities to connect to any custom or your proprietary systems that provides events or any other date-related information. The product comes with a ready-to-use example, a web service. You can find it in the user guide. Google Calendar, I also showed you. This is where you configure the connection to a Google Calendar. We also covered the adding new items settings. Time zones is where you configure which time zones will be displayed. Currently, all the time zones are displayed, as you saw, but you can, of course, show the ones relevant to your organization. And finally, language settings is where you can provide captions almost to anything on the UI. So all the buttons that you see, all the tooltips that you see when you hover some toolbars and so on, this is all translatable, so you can change it to your own language or just to different captions that your business users might understand better. This is it. The product is available for evaluation, for 30 days evaluation, or if you need more, just email us at sales.kwizcom.com and we can give you an extension key. You can also play with the product on our sandbox. Just email us to sales@kwizcom.com, ask for a private sandbox. We can give you a site collection to play with the product without going through the hassle of installing and deploying it if you want. And other than this, if you have any other question or about a feature or any required help with evaluating the product, please feel free to contact us at sales@kwizcom.com. Okay, so let's go over the questions now.